My concerns are more about, are central banks ready to do that? And I focus mainly on two main points, which is, first of all, entering the retail business. Are central banks the most, cheap and efficient alternative to enter this business of retail? Even when thinking about very basic things like dealing with customer complaints or user questions or just providing some know your customer analysis and so on. So are central banks ready for that? And the second point is about privacy. If these transactions are guaranteed to be private, then the central banks could facilitate money laundering, which is a big issue. So is that another thing that central banks should be thinking of? Thank you.
So there are many questions directed to central banks, but before answering, and I will answer, I would just like to make a simple point, which is that the definition of money and the use of money is not to be decided by central bankers. It's decided by parliaments in all countries, and that's prepared by finance ministers, which is why G7 finance ministers and now G20 finance ministers are very keen on having that discussion. So this is not an attempt by the global central bankers coalition to protect their market power. That's a much deeper discussion which has to be adjudicated by parliaments. It is a political discussion. And it is about the ability of any payment system and currency scheme to deliver what citizens expect, which is basically price stability on the one hand, and also the safeness and robustness of payment systems. So that's what the discussion is about. And now, first, I don't think there is any different approach internationally to these questions, to these high-level questions. So China was mentioned, Singapore was mentioned. I mean, they are part of the discussion. They're sitting on the, not on the G7 group by definition, but on the FSB group. Certainly, these are discussions we're having in Basel at the Bank for International Settlements, and I don't see any different approach from Singapore and China. And they're very active participants in that discussion. So the notion that there could be some kind of race to the bottom in terms of safety or in terms of sovereignty, that's not. It's possible. It's always possible, but that's not something we're seeing at all. There's really a wish and a very strong resolve to have international coordination and to come to an internationally consistent answer to all these questions. So that's the first thing. And second, now the solution will be a mix of public and private elements. So it's not a discussion between do we want central banks to do everything or do we want the private sector to do everything. I mean, existing payment systems are an architecture where part of the architecture, typically the backbone, the core backbone, is provided by central banks, but not even everywhere. And the front end is provided by the private sector, and many applications are being provided by the private sector. And so there is no reason why it should be different. So it's only a different way to address the discussion on what's the best way to interact and to put together public solutions and private solutions. The fact is that, until very recently, private innovation in payments has been really focused on the front end. I mean, think of PayPal as an example. So that has been about providing a good interface to customers, but without changing the backbone. And it's only recently with stablecoin projects that we're seeing projects which really also aim at providing different solutions to the backbone. And so that's an entirely new discussion. We'll have to make sense of it. But I'm very much convinced that the end game will be a mix of public and private solutions. And now all the questions on are you going to use that to have more negative rates? Are you going to use that to do helicopter money? I mean, that's a totally different discussion. So, and by the way, we're not doing helicopter money, and there is no plan to do that. And we do have negative rates, but that's a monetary policy discussion. So we're not going to mix up the two discussions, and we're not going to choose a particular path for monetary policy reasons. So let's keep the two discussions separate.